You are listening to the Stand Out Now podcast with your host, Dave Mendonca. Check out each episode as top experts share their proven marketing, publicity, and sales tips to help you cut through the advertising noise so you can reach your ideal clients, get noticed, and connect with powerful influencers. The Stand Out Now podcast is brought to you by podcastinterviewexperts.com, helping entrepreneurs attract clients through business podcast guest appearances.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for listening. Our guest is a young man who has started 8 businesses since he was 12 years old. His latest company, No Cow, generates millions of dollars per year by selling non-dairy protein bars, cookies, and nut butters. Daniel Katz, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing?
I am well, sir. How about you?
Not too bad.
Awesome. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 22.
22. A multi-millionaire. Not bad. Not bad, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get into it. So Daniel, with all my guests, I ask this opening question. When you were a kid, like little, what marketing or sales strategies, knowingly or unknowingly, did you use to get what you wanted?
Yeah, to be honest, when I was young, a lot of people look at that as a disadvantage in business. And, for me, I use that to open up a lot of doors. When you come into the classic CPG, as we call it, consumer packaged goods industry, you typically have a bunch of legacy people working, and being the young guy in the room, isn't always a bad thing. So it definitely was able to get me a bunch of retailer meetings, and I guess I was naive enough to make people want to help me. So I think that definitely was a great, I don't know if you call that a marketing or sales approach, but whatever it was, it definitely helped in the early years.
So, how do you crack through that wall? So you're the young guy in the room, and there's a lot of legacy people around, and they have their preconceived notions about you. How do you break that?
Yeah, I don't look at it as a disadvantage. Being the young guy means that you're going to be the one to really give these guys a directional viewpoint on how to run their business. So, let's look at an example. If I walk into a retailer meeting with a very large retailer, you've got people who've been there for 15 years. The category's seen several changes. And the number one thing they're trying to accomplish is how do we target millennials? How do we target Gen Zers? And how do we evolve with the current times? And, being within that age frame, it really allows me to then be able to pitch the concept of what it's going to take to drive new people and young people within their doors. So that's really kind of the way I look at it. It has never been a disadvantage. You always act like you know what you're doing and you're in the right position. And to be honest, nobody really questions age.
Awesome. Love it. So Daniel, how old were you when you first started that first business?
Oh, first business was probably around 12 or so. However, I think that the mind was going far before that. I was the type of person that was kind of born with the entrepreneurial passion. And, if you asked me what I wanted to do when I was 5, it definitely wasn't, I wanted to be an astronaut. It was more, I wanted to be an angel investor, wanted to start my own business. I just knew from a very early age, which I think is, the one thing in life I was blessed with is knowing what I wanted to do and being able to have a head start on everybody.
What were some of the examples when you were a little kid? Did you have a lemon stand? What were some of these things?
Yeah, they probably went a little bit beyond that, and I wouldn't say for better or worse, but yeah, just a crazy imagination, and I was the type of person that was always trying to find a better way to do everything. So when I was younger, I thought that I was an inventor, like we all do, and came up with product ideas and designs, and what if this product looked this way, or what if there was a product that could make your life easier by doing X, Y, and Z? I think that the difference is I took those ideas and I acted on them and realized that things aren't that complicated. And, you can watch CNBC all you want and hear these long terms and big terms that financial guys are using to, have a better understanding of the market. Or you can just take an idea, turn it into reality in the most basic way possible and realize business really isn't rocket science. It's just about having the grit, having the passion, and having an idea to act on.
Got it. So why do you think, entrepreneurs make it more difficult than what it should be?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And to be honest with you, I think it's ego driven. I think that entrepreneurs, for the most part, want people to think that they're special and want people to think that they're different than everyone else. But in reality, we're not. We're just wired slightly different that, makes us want to jump on the bandwagon with things earlier and actually, grit our teeth together and go after it. So, I think it's primarily ego driven, but at the end of the day, it really is not rocket science. The most important decisions are the ones that are made from natural intuition, gut feelings, and really just going after, the first thought that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's no doubt, Daniel, you've implemented many of those things along your journey. Speaking of that story arc of your business career, let's talk about the different businesses along the way before NoCal. Like, for those that don't know your origin story, can you let us know what businesses you did have before?
Yeah, there were so many, and I wouldn't necessarily consider them to be enterprises by any means. A lot of this was kind of test and learn when I was very young. So it really all started on Craigslist with electronics. I got my first cell phone when I was 12 years old. It was the crappiest phone on the market, and I somehow managed my way through Craigslist and ended up with, at the time, the BlackBerry Storm, which was the greatest phone on the market, without spending a single dollar. So, what that gave me was confidence to realize that, hey, it's really not that complicated. I traded my crappy phone for somebody that wanted a crappy phone, and I got a better phone in exchange. And I continued that process. So that slowly, or actually quickly, morphed into resale electronics business, where I buy things on Craigslist, resell them on eBay. That concept of buying and selling eventually led to me buying and selling cars. I bought my first car when I was 15 years old and started a car dealership and started really flipping cars each month. And the concept was that, I could, unfortunately at the time I didn't have my driver's license, but when I actually received it, I could pick which car I wanted to drive for the month and sell it, make a couple of grand, pay for my gas, and move on to the next thing. So that quickly started. I started a consumer electronics product when I was 13 or 14. The concept was basically an alarm clock that you throw against the wall, and 10 minutes later it has a snooze function, and you got to wake up and go after it and get it. So it kind of forces you out of bed. So I was working with, Chinese manufacturers overseas on that one. We secured some college licenses, and then I actually ended up selling that for royalties. So, took no more part in it than really just the development stages. I bought and sold a house in high school. This one's going to sound crazy, but I bred reptiles in junior high school. I turned my mom's basement into a 70 lizard empire where I was breeding reptiles and shipping them nationwide.
Wow.
I mean, you name it, I probably experimented with it and realized that my passion was doing these weird things that nobody else would even think of.
So let me get this straight.
Yep.
So let me get this.
Again, I just went for it.
All right. So you had like a reptile sanctuary in your parents' basement.
Yep.
You flip like cars and stuff. So wait a second. You're doing all this while the average teenager is like hoping and praying to get their first beer.
Yeah. I was a little bit different. I was, if other people in my schools described me, I would probably say more antisocial.
Right.
Had some friends, but, was not the type of person that would hang out on the weekends. I was the type of person that was on my computer researching or breeding reptiles or doing strange things over the weekend that, and at night and in the mornings that, was not very typical now I come to realize. But I was definitely the strange kid in school, that's for sure.
So what did your parents make of all this? Like seeing their son doing all these great business things, interesting business things?
Yeah, I had a full-time membership to my therapist, I'll tell you that.
Nice.
Therapy was definitely a big part of my life at that point. And to be honest, I had one parent that, comes from a very entrepreneurial background, so totally understands it, totally gets me. The other one, not so much. So, yeah, we had mixed feelings. And, I think that my parents quickly realized who I was. And I don't want to say I was rebellious, but I certainly was not going to take the standard path that everybody else was taking. And at the end of the day, you can either have war and declare war with somebody, or you can just realize and accept that that's who I am. And that's exactly what happened. And, now it's just kind of, they see me as the kid I've always been.
No doubt. Well, listen, there's no questioning your passion. What's your driver? Like, ever since you were young, like being an entrepreneur, what is it about it that appeals so much to you?
Yeah, listen, a lot of people compare entrepreneurship, not compare, but there's a correlation between dollars and revenue and cash in your pocket to entrepreneurship. And the way that I see it's a little bit different. Cash is certainly not the driver for me. However, what cash allows you to do is be able to have more resources to then be able to take your passions and turn them into reality. So that's really the driver for me, is the more you have, the more you're able to do. If you ask people around me, I'm probably the most frugal person you could possibly imagine. and that's the life I choose to live. My passion is really building businesses and really doing what other people think is impossible. The number one motivator for me is when somebody says you can't or your idea is unrealistic. You better damn be sure that I'm going to try everything I can do to make sure that that comes to life. So my passion is really trying to do things that others haven't. And, I don't know if it's proving to myself or proving to others or what it is, but it's just my driver. It's what I love to do. And that's just kind of the way I'm wired.
Okay, Daniel, tell me one of those stories, the hater stories about like, hey, Daniel, you can't do that. There's no way in the world. Tell me a story.
Yeah, I mean, it happens every hour. So, before it was challenged by, external people looking in. Now it's challenged by my own team, my girlfriend usually. I mean, everybody kind of in my network challenges me on everything. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, when you want to look at NoCal, for example, I was a 17-year-old kid who came up with an idea for a protein bar. You look back to 2014. 1,400 new bars hit the market that year alone. So you're looking at one of the most competitive spaces in the entire food and beverage industry, which is already one of the most competitive industries.
Wow.
And, it's competition against multi-billion-dollar brands versus a kid who has no experience, no concept of really anything in this industry, and no capital. So, obviously I got some backlash from pretty much every single person that I told this concept or idea to, including many retailers early on. But again, that's the fuel you need to get after it and make sure you prove them all wrong. So, I'd say that was probably the biggest idea that I could think of.
So when you're doubted that much and you're a young man, like especially at that time, what kind of mental exercises do you do to like prepare yourself or do your best to like block out all that negativity?
Yeah, like honestly, when I say this, I mean it. It's not so much blocking out for me; it's more taking in. So, I'll give you a good example. I met with a very big retailer earlier on who said, "Listen, the product, we think it could have some potential, but there's no way we can give you shelf space, when you have nothing to offer to us." And what I did with that information is I used it and I called their biggest competitor and got shelf placement inside their biggest competitor. Right. And so it's more trying to be able to say F you is kind of where that comes from. So I do a lot more taking in than I do trying to block it out.
Got it. That's great advice. Great advice. So tell me more about NoCal. Okay. So how do you market it? How do you get the word out? How does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So, I think that the cool part about NoCal is we start with the basic fundamentals that any business should have, and that's a great product. When I launched the concept, it was based on a true personal need. I'm very into health and fitness. I was eating 2 to 3 protein bars a day and realized I was getting these crazy stomach aches, and I had a dairy sensitivity and realized that 60% of the world had this exact same sensitivity. So, in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's such a competitive industry. I'll just go to my local grocery store and pick up a dairy-free protein bar that's low sugar, high in protein. And nothing remotely even close existed. So that's really how the whole concept started and how it was created was based on, a real story of somebody that needed to create a product for himself. And, I knew that if I gave myself the product that was perfect for me, I would hope that others would utilize it as well. So, that's what I did. I started building and creating in my kitchen and created the perfect product for myself. And what we've realized at NoCal is it's really less about marketing for us, and it's more about putting it in as many people's hands as possible. And we had the right product at the right time. And, that's the biggest push for us is how do we put this in as many doors, as many retailers as possible, because, we know that there's going to be demand for it.
Right. So how do you do that? Like, what's the pitch? Like, do you like do it in person? Do you make phone calls, emails? What?
Yeah, all of the above. You want to get in front of buyers and retailers face to face is obviously the best because that's the best way to showcase where we're at as a brand, the passion for it, why it was started, and why they need it on their shelves. The cool part about being a 4-year-old company or so is that we've now built up a story. And what I mean by a story is data. So we can showcase that our product is selling really, really well everywhere it's in, which kind of gives us some leverage to then go to other retailers and say, hey, if you want us to do the same thing in your store and drive additional revenue for you as a company, you should put us on the shelf. So,
nice.
The story has definitely transitioned from where it was 4 years ago to where it was literally based on the product and in the story alone. We at least now have a team of people. We've got salespeople and we have a story around it from a velocity point of view that we're able to now pitch.
Awesome. So at what point, when you created NoCal, did you get that validation, that moment when you thought, you know what, this has legs? What was that moment like?
Yeah, well, I would say it was probably the first purchase order.
Nice.
It was the best feeling in the world. You're struggling so hard. You're trying to meet with as many people as possible. And then you've got one person that believes in you and says, hey, I'm going to launch this thing on a national scale and we're going to see what happens. And the pivotal point where I realized we were onto something was a week after we launched in Vitamin Shop with one SKU sitting on the shelf in 200 locations, getting a call that says, hey, we need more and we're going to expand you.
Love it.
And, that's typically a good sign when you're not spending anything on marketing. So that was really kind of the first validation point of the business.
That's awesome. Well, Daniel, that's amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Now, I've been reading some stuff about you. Your incredible work ethic, it's like legendary. In my opinion, you're kind of like a baby Gary Vaynerchuk, a little bit, because you're a hardworking guy. So shed some light on your typical day. What does it look like?
Yeah, again, everything has been an evolution. So, when I first started this business, it was 18-hour days, 7 days a week, and I lived inside my office. I wish I could say a ton has changed, but to be honest, it's pretty similar. I no longer live in my office, but, I'm still working. I would say that 18 hours isn't quite 18 hours anymore. I've been able to show some work-life balance. I wouldn't say a ton, but a little bit more than I used to have. So yeah, it typically, still starts with me waking up well before the majority of the world has woken up, getting an hour workout in and heading straight to the office and coming home late at night. I've got a girlfriend and a puppy we just got and a couple hours with them. And then we're back at it the next day.
Awesome. So what's your take? Like, I know there's a lot of people on the fence about the hustle, Gary V kind of like entrepreneurial lifestyle as opposed to maybe just a bit more work-life balance. In your opinion, what has more of a success rate if you're just, I guess, starting?
Yeah, and, I apologize in advance. The work-life balance isn't probably the right term that I should have used there. Okay. The way that I think about it is, number one, you got to make sure that your work-life balance comes the full circle, right? So your life is your work and your work is your life. So number one, making sure that the people around you are aware of that, such as my girlfriend, right, who knew exactly what she was getting into and knew that that's kind of the lifestyle that I was always going to live. So yeah, the one thing about hustle and passion and grit is that's the one thing that you have full control over, right? The one thing that I don't have control over in business is the product going to sell? Is there going to be a recall? Is somebody going to sue us? All of the potential liabilities with running a business. But the one thing that can be controlled is how much effort you put into it. Yeah. And I can guarantee you that you're going to see that in return. So, I feel very strongly if you love what you do, you should do it all the time. So that's the one thing that can actually control your hustle.
Got it. Oh, who are some people you follow? Like I mentioned Gary V. Like, are there business people that I guess are virtual mentors for you?
Yeah, I got to be honest, not so much. I've never really been into the whole mentoring scene. I've been more in the mindset of let's choose my own path and figure it out. I'm kind of the type of person that, as bad as it sounds, hates to ask people for things, hates to ask questions, likes to kind of learn from mistakes made. So to be honest, most of my life, I've just had my head down going at it by myself, and haven't really had a chance to, take a look and kind of see what else is out there. So, not a ton of people I follow or anything like that. It's more so just being passionate about something and making that my life's priority.
Got it. Well said. Well, I got to tell you, you are becoming a virtual mentor. You don't even know it to many out there just by your story alone. So just giving you a heads up there, Daniel. So just wanted to let you know that. Tell me about this. I read about General Mills investing in you guys.
Correct. Yep.
That's like a monster company, by the way.
It is. So what happened was I was kind of running this thing as a one-man show for the first 2 years or so. And what happened is sales just took off. We were extremely profitable. We were in a great position to really, really just explode. And what happened is I kind of hit this burnout wall where, I was working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. The issue was I was so focused on growth and had my foot so far on the gas pedal, I didn't have any time to take a step back and realize, hey, I need to start building a team and I need to be able to take that time to onboard new members. I mean, I literally wouldn't even take 2 weeks off to train a new hire on how to be successful within the business. So I knew that was going to be an issue. I had some issues on the logistics of the business and the operational front where I was making some big mistakes that probably could have been easily avoidable. So, I got in a conference room with General Mills. I explored, do I sell this business? Do I take on equity investors? What do I do? I met with General Mills and a small private equity firm out of Chicago called 2X Partners. And we decided we needed to work together. So I sold a piece of the business to General Mills and that private equity firm, and we're partners now.
Wow, fantastic. So what are General Mills long-term plans for you?
Yeah, the great part about them is, when you hear the word General Mills, the first reaction, and, I'll be the first to admit it, I kind of had the same reaction as well, is, large corporate company. They're going to change the way we operate. We don't want them to negatively influence the business.
Sure.
All the props in the world to them. They've been the opposite of that. They've been amazing partners who, are there when we need them. They'll raise their hand and say, we can help if they can help. And if not, they're for the most part silent partners. So they're great. The thing about General Mills, and when you kind of look at what's happening in this industry, is you've got a bunch of large strategic partners that are clearly declining year over year, and they're looking to source their innovation through young startup brands like NoCal. So, the way that I kind of describe it to our employees is that we want General Mills to be picking up the phone, calling us for help more than we call them. But the great news is we're also able to benefit from the large corporate scale of the business. So, for example, R&D work to create new products or quality control or checking our labels. So it's a really, really great mutually beneficial relationship.
Oh, amazing. Well done, sir. Well done. So, Daniel, what is next? You seem like a very ambitious guy, always things on the go. Do you see things beyond NoCal, or is just NoCal your total focus?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a list of 30 things that I would start tomorrow if I could. But what you realize is you only have so much time in the day, and you have to really be single-mindedly focused on a goal, or else you're never going to be able to be as efficient as possible. So we're going to take NoCal to $100 million a year before we even consider what the next life chapter holds. But I definitely would consider myself to be more of a serial type of entrepreneur. And, I'm not going to be running NoCal for the next 30 years. But at the same time, I'm very committed, dedicated, and have a goal in mind, and I'm not going to stop until we get there.
Daniel, it's so hard for entrepreneurs to focus. How do you do it?
Adderall.
Nice.
I'm just messing with you. No, the number one thing that I do to focus is honestly exercise. Working out in the morning, bright and early, has had such a big impact on me. And honestly, I can't function when I don't. I guess that's kind of like an hour of therapy and kind of sets the rest of the tone of the day for me. So exercise has been a huge part of that. And then also setting goals. And when I say setting goals, I don't mean on a weekly basis. I mean setting macro giant level goals of, hey, we want to be 100 million in sales. That's a big goal. And that's something I can get behind and put all my effort towards. So those are really the two things that I think have contributed to that focus.
Beautiful. Daniel, this has been terrific. I know you're very busy. How can people find out more about you and NoCal?
Yeah. We're available in about 18,000 retail locations now. You can find us at Walgreens, CVS, GNC's, Vitamin Shops, Sprouts, Wegmans, H-E-B. Go to nocal.com. You can get a store locator and figure that out. And obviously, we're available online too. But that's kind of the best way. And we're working on making sure it's available in more locations now.
Awesome. Well, good luck to you, sir.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to the listeners for checking out the episode. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Stand Out Now podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and rate and review it as well. You can find out more about our program at thestandoutnowpodcast.com. Thanks again and enjoy your week.